I think it lost it for the computer.
Good evening. I call to order this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. We do have a quorum this evening. We have all members present and our student member. At this time, I would like to introduce two students from Potomac Heights Elementary School, Zachary Holder, who's a third grade student at Potomac Heights, and his sister, Zoe Holder, who is a second grade student at Potomac Heights. Zachary and Zoe are going to be a dynamic duo in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Zachary, Zoe? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So Zachary and Zoe, how are things at Potomac Heights these days?
Good?
They're good?
Yes.
Do you have favorite subjects?
Mine is gym.
Gym. All right. And you? Math.
Good.
Aha. What kinds of things are you learning about in math these days?
Multiplication, division, and fractions.
Wow. And you enjoy that. And Zoe, back to you. In phys ed, or as you call it, gym, what are your favorite things to do in gym?
Stretch.
Stretch. Does your phys ed teacher have some good stretching routines that you do?
Yes.
And you do them to music, I bet, right? Uh-huh. I forgot to ask you if you had some people here that you would like to introduce this evening. I know you have two people on the front row and then someone on the second row on the end. Would you like to introduce these people?
Yes. My mom and dad.
Good.
And who's that in the row behind your mom and dad there on the end?
Miss Forrest.
Miss Forrest. And who is she?
Our principal of Potomac Heights Elementary.
Oh, wow.
Well, thank you, Mom and Dad, and thank you, Mrs. Forrest, for being here in support of Zachary and Zoe. Do you have anything that you would like to ask us about?
No.
No? Well, I would like to thank you both. You're delightful. Do you always talk in tandem like that?
No.
No? Well, thank you so
Let me
much.
ask Zach a question.
Pardon?
Let me ask Zach. a question.
Okay.
Zach,
Zachary,
Zach,
could you wait a minute? Mr. Stauffer would like to ask you something.
yeah. What's your second favorite subject? Be honest now.
Art.
You said something beforehand and somebody said you can't say that.
Thank you both. Thank you both. At this time, we'll have approval of this evening's agenda.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the agenda? Thank you. We have a unanimous approval of the agenda with the student member concurring. We'll move on then to the approval of the minutes.
Madam President, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, February the 18th, 2020.
Guessford, is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Are there any additions or corrections to this set of minutes? No? Then we'll move for approval of the minutes of the closed session for February 18th. All those in favor? Okay, they're unanimously approved.
Madam President, I move for the second approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, February the 18th, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the business meeting of February 18th? Okay, then we'll move to approve. All those in favor? All right, we have unanimous vote on approval of the minutes with the student member concurring. And now we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Michael.
Thank you, President Williams and board members. Tonight, we're pleased to announce it's National School Social Worker Week, the week of March 1st through the 7th. And I'm going to ask Helen Huffer and Connie Hartman to come forward. I believe we have a proclamation. I'm going to ask them to read that. And after we finish that, I'd like the board members to go down front. We'll recognize not only Helen and Connie, but any other social workers that are here. We'd like to recognize them as well.
Good evening. On behalf of the Washington County Board of Education, I'd like to read a proclamation. Whereas school social workers serve as vital members of the educational team, playing a central role in creating a positive school environment, and whereas school social workers are skilled in providing services to students who face serious challenges in school success, including poverty, discrimination, bullying, loss of a loved one, and other barriers to learning. And whereas there is a growing need for school systems and other educational agencies to address students' emotional, physical, and environmental needs so they can achieve academic success. And whereas school social workers have expertise in many areas such as mental health intervention, human growth and behavior, how family dynamics affect student achievement, child abuse and neglect, and community resources. Therefore, be it proclaimed that March 1st through 7th, 2020 is observed by the Washington County Public Schools as National School Social Worker Week. Thanks for all that you guys do.
Come forward, Ms. Murray.
Can I introduce the two that are
Oh,
with me?
absolutely,
Okay. I'd like to introduce Jocelyn, who is a social worker at Bester Elementary, to accept the proclamation on behalf of the social workers in the school counseling department.
And I'd like to introduce Steve Malott, who is accepting the proclamation for the Clinical Services Team Summit Programs, Special Education.
Just right in the middle. Turn your front. Don't worry about it. Williams, that completes my report here for this part of the program.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. All right, at this time in our meeting, we'll have public comment. And before I call the people forward who have signed up in advance, I'd like to read from policy KD regarding public comment during business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify individuals or an individual. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. We have as our timekeeper, Mr. Bickford. Would you like to explain your little signs?
30 seconds left, and this means wrap it up.
Thank you. So the first person I have listed to speak is Laura Cole. Mrs. Cole?
Hi,
Hello.
good evening. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Great. First of all, good evening. Thank you each for your time and listening to my concerns tonight. My name is Laura Cole, and I'm coming to you as a concerned parent after learning in a local high school that boys are going in and out of the girls' bathrooms. Doesn't matter what gender that they align with or identify with. To date, I have that this is occurring in 5 of our high schools and 1 of our middle schools. Additionally, I want to make this absolutely clear that this is not an attack on the LGBTQ community whatsoever. As you'll see through my speech, I have some very dear concerns that are very close to my heart. So number 1, I am holding Washington County to be transparent and forthcoming with information. At first, when I first learned of this, I was told that there were no policies, or that there were policies in place that can allow this to happen. I was referred to the school board, and after requesting it, I was sent the safe space, what I was told was policies, via email. After researching, and then finally late last week, confirmation from Washington County, I learned that there are in fact actually no policies in place for safe spaces for anybody. That what was sent to me is actually guidelines and recommendations from the state. Number 2, I am requesting a formal apology to myself, students, family members, and community members for being lied to about this. Additionally, I am also requesting a formal apology from Washington County for telling me in an email that my child does not have rights and is not protected because she does not relate to this class. I was absolutely devastated when I read this email, and I'm sorry that I'm getting choked up about this. Number 3, I'm requesting Washington County create policies that protects all of our students, no matter how they identify. This is essential to all of our students so that other students don't abuse, break, or take advantage of situations where policies do not exist. Anyone can say that they're transgender or gender nonconforming and go in and out of the bathrooms as they so desire. This is happening. We're having students that do not appear to be transitioning, that appear to be boys, going into girls' bathroom, and then the next time going right back into the boys' bathroom. They're going into whatever bathroom they want to at whatever point in time that they so desire. And again, I have the confirmation that this is occurring in 6 of our schools. I would like to bring to point a very interesting statistic through all of my research. As you can see, I've been doing a lot of it. According to RAINN, which is a Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, 15% of sexual assaults occur on our school grounds. This does not include, in this percentage, college at all. This is elementary, middle, and high school. 13% of these students that are sexually assaulted contemplate suicide with, or successfully complete suicide. 33% contemplate suicide. That takes me to number 4 and 5. I am formally requesting to be a part of policy creation for Washington County. And then once the policies have been created, it needs to be introduced into the parent-student handbook. Number 6, I am requesting the introduction of a form entitled Request for Accommodation for Student Privacy. That's attached in that packet I gave you. I am requesting that this form goes into effect immediately and is available to all students. Finally, our students are being threatened for speaking up. They're being told that they will be punished if they are speaking up. The cancel culture is threatening them. They're threatening parents. I have been threatened. I've been told to not show up here tonight and give you all my concerns. This has got to stop. Washington County has got to protect all of our students while they are in school and make sure that we have policies in place for everybody. We're seeing that this is happening time and time again throughout our country, and I don't want to see this happen here in Washington County. We need to be proactive versus reactive. I thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Neil Becker, would you like to come forward, please?
Good evening, President Williams, board members, Superintendent Michael. Every student in Washington County is protected and safe. That's not what I'm talking about, though. I'll address the budget in a few minutes. I speak today to address Judge Vicki Pauler's February 20th decision that restores collective bargaining rights to WCESP, the Washington County Education Support Personnel, and requires the Board of Education to negotiate hours with WCESP. Clearly, negotiating hours is an essential element of collective bargaining, and the anti-association or anti-union decision by the PSLRB has been squashed by Judge Pauler, as it was in Anne Arundel County. The timing of this decision is noteworthy. Just days after WCPS recognized the ESP of the Year finalists and winner, Judge Pauler also recognized ESPs and their ability to negotiate hours. During a time when the board is being fiscally conservative, again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, and concentrating funds on students, staff, and programming, the expenditure of funds to fight with WESP at the labor board and in court is inexcusable. Don't waste any more staff resources or spend one more dollar on Les Stellman and his contracted firm to appeal this decision. Step back, accept Judge Pauler's ruling, return to the table. In closing, I encourage you, actually, I challenge you, this is the audience participation portion. I challenge the elected board to stand up for the ESPs who keep our buildings running, keep our buses rolling. Stand with them, announce publicly that the Board of Education and Washington County Public Schools won't waste any more time or any more funds on this decision or an appeal. Right here, right now, you can announce it to the world, tell those employees how valued they are and respected they are by dropping any appeals. Stand by your employees and return to the table and resist an appeal. Thank you.
I have no others signed up in advance. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward? Yes, I see a hand back there.
Make it clear the budget thing comes later.
Oh,
Later.
yes, that is later. Is that the case? You wanted to speak on the budget? No? Okay, okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Stephanie Neff. Previously, I spoke at December's business meeting with concerns of my daughter's kindergarten classroom. At that time, there were 26 kindergartens to 1 teacher. Since then, Rockland Woods has implemented a new kindergarten class that started on February the 24th. The ratio now is 20-1 with a total of 5 kindergarten teachers. This is amazing that this has happened. Smaller classrooms for early childhood education from pre-K to 2nd grade should be kept, if at all possible, under 20 students. These beginning school years are very pivotal for children's basic foundation with reading and math. If the board and the state wants to gloat about state-mandated testing and the progress of students' scores, you have to start looking at the very beginning of the start of early childhood education. If this could be done, you may be able to see an improvement going forward with testing scores as students move up to the next grade levels as the school years go on. I know this may seem unfeasible for now. Houses are continuing to be built at Westfields, and they have already started to dig out there by Walmart behind Arby's. They got like 3 lots, foundations dug out. If you have to have more than 20 kids in a class, create a new position, a teacher aide. You can have the applicants have some training and an exam along with a strict hiring policy. As you begin your proposed plans of merging Hickory and Fountain Rock and building the new school with a projected opening date of 2024 across the street from here on Downsville Pike, please keep in mind of the smaller schools in the classrooms. It would become more upsetting with the smaller school closures of Greenbrier, Old Forge, Cascade for the 2026 school year, Fountaindale and Potomac Heights in 2028, and finally replacing the Funkstown Elementary for the school year 2030 along with Emma K. Dow. Yes, we are in need of more schools in the county. Build your mega schools if you must, but please try and keep the smaller feeder schools open to help alleviate the oversized classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Neff. Is there anyone else? Thank you. We'll move then to the second part of the superintendent's report. Oh, no, excuse me, I'm wrong. It's reports to the board. Sorry, my apology. We have a report and a recommendation from our Budget Advisory and Review Committee, fondly known as the BARC. And they will be making recommendations relative to the Board of Education's fiscal year 2021 draft general fund operating budget. Mr. Prue, good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. I'm representing the Budget Advocacy and Review Committee this evening and extend well wishes from the chairs, Mr. Steve Hummel, who unfortunately is out of town, traveling somewhere, resting and relaxing while we're listening to the report. There are a couple of committee members here in the audience. If they'd like to come forward, I would invite them to do that. Ms. Gail Stewart, I know, is here, as is Dr. Terry Williamson is here in the room. So if they'd like to come forward, I would encourage them to do that. You have the committee's report and recommendation in your packet. And I'll skip some of the intro, but get you into some of the bullet points and highlights and paraphrase a little bit some of the information you do know. So on page 1, at this point, the increase in the state revenue over the FY20 budget is anticipated to be $1.65 million. The county is required to provide approximately $2.7 million of maintenance of effort as a result of the provision known as additional effort for low-effort counties. This is the fourth consecutive year that Washington County has been labeled in that category, requiring additional funding to the school system. The total request to the county commissioners above maintenance of effort is $5.129 million for the coming year. While the Board of Education actually anticipated the 1.2% increase in the foundation level of state funding, it only in effect received 60.66% due to the increase in wealth per pupil, which grew at a higher rate than the rest of the state. Washington County grew at over 5%, while the state grew at 3.5%. Simply stated, this indicates to the state that the county has the ability to fund the Board of Education budget at a higher level. In 2019, the Washington County Commissioners raised their piggyback income tax rate from 2.8% to 3.2%, effective January 1, 2020. This translates to a 14.3% increase in Washington County's tax-based income total receipts for fiscal year 2019. Further audited financial statements on the website were $86.84 million. If you apply the 14.3% increase to the base without consideration of future growth, that's an increase in revenue for the county of $12.4 million, of which 50% was realized in FY20, and the remaining 50% we realized in FY21. That's in addition to the $5.5 million increase in the disparity grant resulting from the increase in income tax. That's money directly from the state. Further, the county also realized an increase of $2.3 million in property tax revenue in FY19, budgeted a similar increase in FY20, and based on current market conditions, a similar increase should be expected in FY21. The Washington County Commissioners have new revenues that will be coming from these various increases. However, it is up to the county commissioners to allocate it towards education. If Washington County Public Schools has about 43% of the county's budget, the school system's share of the revenue increase would be approximately $6.02 million, which exceeds the amount requested above maintenance of effort, but falls short of the full request of $7.7 million. To that end, the school system has received only $500,000 above maintenance of effort for the last 10 years combined. It's past time the Board of County Commissioners make an investment in education. Total incremental funding needed for the 2021 budget is $9.577 million. Enrollment in K-12 increased by 38 students. Pre-K enrollment increased by 249 students. And increase in EL students increased by 45 students. And 2 additional EL teachers have been proposed in the current budget. Washington County Public Schools has an increase of 0.8% in the number of free and reduced meal students available this year as opposed to last year. While there may be additional dollars associated with this increase from 47 to 47.8%, funding is still not sufficient to meet the growing needs and concerns of these students. Changing demographics for the student population and behaviors necessitate a growing need. A significant increase in various behavior changes has made it necessary for increased elementary support. A new program to address these needs includes 1 certified behavior specialist, 7 teachers, 15 paraprofessionals, and 5 social workers. This comes at a cost of $1.7 million, including the associated benefits cost. To address the growing challenges, in addition, there are a number of unanticipated health and safety needs totaling approximately $500,000. These include rising class sizes, clerical staff to support state security mandates, and medical insurance adjustments for new positions. An additional unanticipated increase was needed for 9 support staff to assist on bus routes due to ongoing growing challenges with behaviors on buses. The committee believes that the funding in this category should be much higher, as the behavior challenges are not isolated to just a specific grade level or school and continue to increase. We want to commend the staff for their continued diligence with regard to the savings and cost reductions. Overall, with turnover credit, redeployment of staff and equipment, benefit our budget over $2.1 million. The school system continues to experience mandatory increases. These include, but are not limited to, middle college program, nursing services, software programs, and upgrades to classroom technology. In order to continue to provide world-class education to our students, technology needs will continue to grow. One critical item is $300,000 for cybersecurity software. Our committee also discussed the capital improvement budget and how Washington County appears to be leaving capital improvement funds on the table in Annapolis. This is simply because the county commissioners will not match these available funds. Washington County Schools has now the 4th oldest weighted average age of school facilities. Baltimore City and Kent County are both at 41 years, Prince George's at 37, and Washington County stands at 33. WCPS cannot access these available funds because the county commissioners simply will not match dollars to obtain as much of these funds as possible. We do realize the county commissioners have the opportunity, we do realize the county commissioners have to fund many requests, but strongly encourage them to consider taking advantage of the opportunity to obtain some of these capital improvement dollars. The longer the Board of County Commissioners defers the funding needed to improve school facilities, the more the need grows. The commissioners must leverage local funds to match these dollars and provide additional funds above the match to meet the growing backlog of deferred capital maintenance. Our committee clearly recognizes that the committee is facing increasing needs. At the same time, we are fully aware the county has amassed fund balances as a result of years of surpluses as well as recent tax increases. In line with our discussions, we must request that our commissioners do not shift any additional cost to the school system. The system has already absorbed the cost of school buses, crossing guards, and the Judy Center's director's salary that at one time were provided to WCPS as non-recurring costs. Additionally, the county shifted the nearly $3 million cost of school nurses to the school system when they defunded the school nurse program at the county health department in fiscal year 2013. We believe that the Board of Education has always acted responsibly with these funds that have been entrusted to it in the past. Again, the board has strived to maintain a low average class size and provide individualized and differentiated instruction. We believe that the board has acted in the best interest of the citizens of Washington County. We recommend that the county commissioners make a greater investment in education. We request that the county commissioners to fully fund the request from Washington County Public Schools in the amount of $5,129,550 above maintenance of effort and provide the services that students, citizens of Washington County need. Respectfully submitted, Stephen Hummel, Chairperson, Budget Advocacy and Review Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Colleagues, any comments or questions for Mr. Pruitt or the members of the committee?
I have a couple questions. And really just narrowing it down, because there was a lot you went through. So, you met and you basically discovered that from the tax increase that the commissioners passed last year, that you're estimating they're going to have $12.4 million more because of that tax increase, correct?
Over 2 years. So
Over 2 years.
it's a 14% increase from 2.8 to 3.2%, multiplied by the $86 million in the base that they received in 2019. So when they receive a full year's value at full 14.3%, it's $12 million. It's split for them over 6 years because the tax goes into effect January 1.
Got it.
So $6 million should be realized in 20, $6 million in 21.
And because they increased taxes, the state essentially rewarded them by giving them how much more money?
5.5 million.
Okay. Dr. Michael, what is in your budget as a resource pool of how much that we traditionally use for?
A little over $5 million.
We traditionally use that for staff salary increases? Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Pruitt, members of the committee, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say this is a continuing battle. I started in 1970 teaching in this county, and it's been a battle with the county commissioner, whether Republican or Democrat, for years, going back 50 years, trying to get the funds to run the schools properly. It's amazing that we have been able to do, and I'm not just talking about this board and this superintendent, but going back many, many years, the things that have been accomplished with the funding that we've received over the years. I would point out one of the big things are the security vestibules. That started from WCPS, putting security vestibules in all the schools. And we funded that out of the, check me if I'm wrong, out of the operating budget until just recently when we got funds and so forth. So it's a continuing battle, 50 years old. Here it is, 2020. So.
Ms. Williams, if I may, just sort of a bit of humor. I started on this committee when Dr. Gerson was the superintendent. I've been on it every year since Dr. Gerson was the superintendent. So all these numbers and what we're requesting as a committee We have done this over and over again, to Mr. Stauffer's point, but you know what? It's the right thing to do. So don't be surprised if I don't show up at the county commission.
Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Mr. Gesser?
Yeah, I kind of want to Stan's point, I mean, we have been very diligent with what we have. I have to applaud the superintendent because I think he has come up with the best budget he possibly can with the circumstances. I don't see it changing, unfortunately. But I know our staff has really stepped up when it's needed to find ways to be the best we can in Washington County. And I applaud that because without our staff, we wouldn't be anywhere. And, you know, money is great, but our people are better than that. And I'm glad that who we have, superintendent and the staff, that can kind of raise up above when the county commissioners don't support this. And I don't see them doing it again, unfortunately. You know, I'd like to be wrong. But with their past performance, I just don't see that happening. So I think we're going to, again, see a challenge. So, but thanks the committee for, and Terry, if you've been on it for that long, my goodness, congratulations, but you've seen it all then.
Well, and what's really disappointing, Mike, is that the fact that we have done, you know, the ability to have the state match years and years ago, and it just never happened, the county commissioners, and we were only talking like $500,000, which, again, is a lot of money. However, they acted like it was a gazillion dollars. And things that could have happened didn't happen. And as a taxpayer, both at the county level and the city level in this county, it just makes me sad.
Yep.
Not that we don't need the police force, believe me, but
Right.
it just makes me sad that there's no vision.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
No, I know this wasn't in this presentation, but I just wanted to bring this up because I'm not sure whether the general public knows this. But talking about school resource officers and keeping our students and staff safe, a lot of other counties pay for the resource officers, a lot of other county commissioners in around the state. We are one of the few counties that we are charged with paying for that.
That's
Of
correct.
our-
I think we are
Of our funding.
one of maybe 2 or 3 statewide that pay the full share.
Right.
We pay for our entire SRO force.
What do you estimate the county's fund balance will be or is?
Rough numbers off the top of my head from what I remember from reviewing their annual audited financial statement, all in total, roughly 125 to 128 million, 45, if memory serves me correct, in the general fund balance and 80 in the capital fund balance, and the remaining few million in various other funds.
I'd just like to say that last year at the commissioner's budget hearing at Kepler Theater, person after person came to the microphone and told the commissioners, you need to make the pie bigger. If you don't have enough money there to fund all who need funded, you need to make the pie bigger. And they did just that. The pie is bigger. They've raised taxes and there is increased revenue. And I would think that the expectation of all those who sat in Kepler Theater in support and advocacy for the Board of Education's budget being fully funded, their expectation is that Washington County Public Schools will have their budget funded fully this year. So to the committee, I thank you for understanding the needs of the school system, for examining our budget, for making excellent recommendations, and for your strong advocacy for Washington County Public Schools. We truly appreciate it. And Dr. Williamson, thank you for your dedicated service. It's all volunteer. As is all.
give you donuts at least or something?
No.
No, we bring them in at 6 o'clock at night and
Oh,
just
okay.
put them under the microscope.
Yeah.
Got it.
If you've got donuts, I'll serve one.
I will will say, Mr. Gethford, though, we did move from the whiteboard in Dr. Gerson's office with a marker to figure out how we were going to do it to, more sophisticated ways of figuring it out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we're going to take a recess from our business meeting and convene the public hearing. This public hearing is for the purpose of providing the public with the opportunity to comment on the Board of Education's fiscal year 2021 draft general fund operating budget. And before I open the floor for comment, I have something to read from Policy KD. This falls under procedures for public hearings. Persons desiring to speak at such public hearings are encouraged but not required to register through the superintendent's office prior to the date of the meeting or register at the location of the meeting up to 1/2 hour in advance of the commencement of the hearing. Persons speaking as individuals will be allotted 3 minutes. Those representing an organization will be allotted 5 minutes. No presenter may waive all or a portion of his or her allotted time to permit someone who has not properly registered to speak. So I do have several people who have registered in advance. And before I call the first person, I would like to say that our job as a board this evening at this hearing is to listen. So we will not be commenting. There may be an occasion to ask a question for clarification, but we will not be dialoguing with anyone commenting this evening. Okay? Mr. What's your name? Bickford?
Did you really forget?
No. Mr. Bickford, if you're ready with your timekeeping
Sure. So everybody gets,
visuals.
was there anybody that gets? more
Well,
than-
it would be helpful if the person coming forward would let us know if they're speaking for an organization or for just speaking as an individual.
3 and 5.
It's 3 and 5. 3 for the individual, 5 for the organization.
It's public
You got that? You got all that, Mr. Pickford?
I got it.
Okay. 3 and 5. Okay. So the first person I have signed up is Colleen McCrae. Is Colleen here? Uh-huh.
I am speaking on behalf of an organization.
All right.
Okay,
Oh.
thank you.
Adjusting to 5.
Good evening. Nice to see everyone. Thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of Fountain Rock Elementary. Up here with me, I have Katie Wolfensberger, 5th grade teacher, Justina Jordan, our school counselor, and Mr. Schulteis, our PE teacher. So at Fountain Rock Elementary, there is a very diverse learning community who is in need of a full-time counseling position. It is the WCPS belief that we do what is in the best interest for kids. Right now, we feel that need is not being met in the way of a counselor. We are requesting that our counselor, who is currently .6 at our school, be increased to full-time because of the growing emotional and social need that is present in our students. The full-time position would allow for consistency with individual counseling sessions, small group and classroom lessons, as well as helping to promote growth both academically and emotionally for all of our students. The .6 position is this year. Next year, that position is being dropped to .5 because of the closing of Funkstown Elementary and the redistribution of services. The American School Counselor Association recommends a ratio of 1 full-time counselor to 250 students. The ratio at Fountain Rock is well below that recommendation, with 1 part-time counselor to 280 students. Next year, our population is projected to increase even more. Because of the anticipated decrease in service time next year, our counselor is taking on an additional school with an even larger population than her current split. The total number of students that she's being asked to service in a part-time position is approximately 540 students, and that's not what's best for kids. It is imperative that the counselor pulls groups and individual students based on the social and emotional needs on a weekly basis. These students are currently being pulled in combined grade level groups during core subjects due to time constraints. Not only the amount of time that she's there is an issue, but she hasn't been able to meet the needs of our students because of other school-wide responsibilities, such as coordinating SST meetings, facilitating testing, coordinating 504 meetings, leading FBAs and BIPs, leading school-wide attendance initiatives, behavior calls, and so much more. Fountain Rock Elementary is at a disadvantage because we only have one principal. We do not have an assistant principal, and the lead teacher is split with Gate. Oftentimes, the adults need to be pulled into jobs that don't fit into their immediate job description, simply because there are not enough adults in the building to meet the immediate needs of our students. The county has addressed the increased mental health services by increasing the number of mental health professionals around the county and adding multiple professional development sessions for staff to attend. If the same urgency and mindset targeted individual schools, then we think that each school's ratio should match the recommended amount. We are a small country school, but our students face the same issues as surrounding schools: rural poverty, parents who suffer from alcohol and drug disorders, homelessness, non-nuclear homes, and severe childhood trauma. Due to these traumas, our schools should be treated the same as others in the county, regardless of location inside. There is a neglect in mental health here at Fountain Rock, and our students are suffering because of it. There is a need for more support, and we are left questioning if what's best for kids only applies to bigger schools. So we are, asking for that full-time counselor, not just for us, not just the staff, but our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Neil Becker?
Right? You just didn't write.
I'm going to say organization. I don't think I'll need all five, but you can sit back, relax, chat for a while. We got a lot to say. Before I get into the actual formal comments, first, the Rockland Woods Elementary example is a perfect example of the school system reacting to the needs of our students, and this hearing is a perfect opportunity. I love seeing a room full of people. It's great because you have an audience of folks who are paying attention to what's happening with the budget, with our school system, and what's best for our students. And often you have an audience of 2 or 3, so having an audience that's a room that's full of educators and concerned citizens speaks volumes about the importance of this budget. And these, again, I got 5 minutes, I'm going to use them. And Mike, you brought up about people and the importance of people in the school system and the commitment of the people to the success of the students. I can't commend Dr. Michael enough for his words today at the commissioners' meeting. I know teachers couldn't see it because they were teaching it at 11 o'clock today, but Dr. Michael's comments to the Board of County Commissioners last week and now again this week exemplify the importance of a fully funded budget. And Dr. Michael, I can't express enough how important it was for you to say what you said in that public arena, because he spoke to the importance of people. And if not for the people and the critical teacher shortage our nation is facing, let alone our county and our state, we're going to be in a really bad way soon if there's not an investment in education. So I'll get back to my real comments. So we know no budget is perfect, but this is a step in the right direction. Thank you, superintendent and staff and the board, the elected board, for drafting this budget and now having this hearing so you can understand that this budget does meet the needs, for the most part, of our students, our staff, and our school system. Last year, WCPS made a concerted effort to improve access to school counselors and social workers. EL teachers and paraprofessionals were added to help students achieve at the highest level possible. More pre-Ks, including the Little Hubs, a really innovative program at North Hagerstown High, show a commitment to learning and the commitment this board, the elected board, has to learning. We just need the commissioners to catch the train. In the coming weeks and months, I will continue, and I'm sure a lot of folks behind me will continue, to advocate for a fully funded budget at the county level, because this budget, right now, the budget before you, enhances opportunities for our students. As I explained to anyone who will listen, investment in education is investment in the county's economy and Washington County's future. When we invest in our children, we invest in ourselves. Our youth will be our tradespersons, nurses, educators, and everything else required to get our county to run smoothly. Thank you for adding teachers, counselors, and SLPs. Thank you for adding speech language pathologists, I apologize. Thank you for adding paraprofessionals who can help our youngest and our neediest learners, but there are still more needs, and I'm sure you're going to hear about some of them. I know the county commissioners are not streaming this right now. They're not in the room. They're hosting a meeting in Boonesboro. But I hope that they will review the comments submitted into the record during this meeting. I encourage tonight's speakers to forward their comments to the county commissioners. The work WCPS has done to make pre-K accessible is noteworthy. The work WCPS has done to construct safety vestibules is noteworthy, as is the work to boost literacy and math literacy, to enhance EL services, and to address students experiencing trauma. All this while our county commissioners continue to be labeled low effort by the state of Maryland. Not my designation, not your designation, the state of Maryland, again, labels our county commissioners low effort. Our students deserve more than low effort, and your budget exemplifies that. Thank you for working for our students via a responsible budget focused on student achievement. Thank you.
Carol Regenbaum Barnhart.
So I can be an organization?
Okay.
Would you like to introduce the?
I will.
Thank you.
With me is Helen Tasker, English teacher at Washington County Technical High School, and Carol Mowen, English teacher at Washington County Technical High School. So we're representing Washington County Technical High School. My name's Carol Krakenbaum Barnhart. Good evening. Thanks for listening to me. I'm a school counselor at Washington County Technical High School. This is my 40th year working for Washington County Public Schools. I refer to myself as a seasoned counselor. Many individuals have asked me, "You can retire, can't you? Why haven't you?" I'm not ready yet. Sorry, I'm going to move that a little bit. I come from a family of educators. I am a third-generation educator. My grandfather was John D. Zentmeyer, former principal of Hagerstown High School. My mother was the second generation, and my son is a fourth-generation educator. We really value education. A month ago, my mother died, and I can't tell you just how much I felt supported by the administration and the staff at Washington County Technical High School. I knew they cared by their action and words. I know that not every teacher in Washington County feels this way about their own staff, but I know I am blessed. It makes such a difference in one's outlook and mental health to know you are supported. Yesterday, when a student asked if she could speak to me, I told her I had 20 minutes until I was due in the classroom to work directly with a group of students. She said fine, she'd like to talk. She watched the clock and took most of the 20 minutes. Then she said, "I know you need to go. Thank you for listening to me. I just needed someone to talk to. I'm okay now." Had she really needed more than 20 minutes, I would have called the classroom and canceled. I have a supportive staff that way, and they know that a student in crisis ranks first with us. I know this because I have canceled many more than one classroom visit over the last 2 years. What breaks my heart is I just don't have the quality time to spend with my 612 students. In 1997, the school had 290 juniors and seniors combined with one counselor. While the number of students have doubled, direct counseling services to these students has not. I commend Dr. Michael for his initiative last year in putting so many more school counselors and social workers into the system. The lower grades definitely need interventions at an early age. I also want to thank him for last year. He officially went with the politically correct term of school counselors versus guidance counselors, which has been a national movement for years and years. Dr. Michael has always been an advocate for the school counselors, and we certainly appreciate that, as has the board. I am here to request an additional full-time counselor for Washington County Technical High School. My students, our students, deserve a second counselor. That's a long way. You already heard the recommendation was 1 for 250 students. We were closer to that in 1997 than we are today. And counseling has certainly changed over the last 40 years. The mental health needs are overwhelming, even at our school, which is what amazed me when I first went to Washington County Tech High. We have wonderful outside agencies, the therapists that come in, but they work generally once every 2 weeks with those students. That leaves me a lot of Band-Aiding. My job, I just really would like to be able to do more with my students. I want to do more college and career. I want to be doing FAFSA more often. I want to be doing a lot of things that you expect me to do that I just literally do not have time to do with our students. Washington County needs that, and at any future time you would like to discuss what I do on a daily basis, I would be glad to do so, and why we need the other. I'd also be remiss if I didn't ask for additional academic teachers for our students. Again, we just sent out 340 acceptance letters to the sophomore class in our county. That will be the largest class we have ever accepted if they all come in. We need the academic teachers to balance out the amount of students that we are increasing. Every year we have gone up. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Ricky Lauer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you, first off, for the opportunity for us to have for me to speak, excuse me. My name is Ricky Lauer. I'm a Washington County resident. I'm a teacher of 14 years, and I'm a parent of 2 Washington County kids, so I'm very invested in this county. I wanted to start by thanking you for a full-time school counselor this year. I teach at Emma K. Daub, and our teachers are now fully focused on instruction while students get the emotional support they need on a daily basis from our school counselor. This has made a very positive impact on student success. But when looking forward at academic success at Emma K. Daub, the staff has asked that someone speak on their behalf, and the students' behalf foremost, for the further needs at our school. First, kindergarten is operating without a paraprofessional and is in deep need of one due to the fact that our kindergarten population is Title I, but it doesn't get the paraprofessional support that they need. Students could flourish academically with the support of a paraprofessional who could help support both behavioral and individual academic needs so that this teacher could instruct without disruptions that are currently occurring. Secondly, despite our very, very best efforts, our school has students who are multiple grade levels below. We currently have no intervention teacher to support the needs of those students. Teachers are working very, very hard to help close the academic gap, but there is too much work for one teacher to take on in each class. For instance, a class may have students below the expectation while trying to support the many on-grade level students and the above grade level students. An intervention teacher could work with our neediest students to help support their growth and help us close that achievement gap in each class. Third, and most importantly, please support the Blueprint for Maryland's future, and I know many of you have spoken about how much you want the budget to grow. Teachers and school personnel are working hard, but have limited resources. Our school population has changed so much since the last funding formula. We have students who are struggling in poverty, have parents who are dealing with addictions, or the children have suffered other childhood traumas. These problems are large and exist with many of our students, and I've seen it in my class year after year. We need more personnel to help support the issues our students face. Consider what are the two places that students go on an average weekday: school and home. Our schools can help provide the resources necessary to support our neediest students, helping students out of the situations that they find themselves in and into a brighter future. It's vital to support the Blueprint for Education, to start supporting all our students' need and the schools for the future of Hagerstown. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Amy Elias.
This looks like an organization to me.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have with me the Occupational Therapy Department, so let them introduce themselves. I'm Amy Elias.
Cheryl Morris. Amy Conaway.
Amanda Himmelwright.
Melanie Ott. Nicole Elhatch.
We thank you for listening to us this evening. So we do represent the Occupational Therapy Department, and we would like to address the need for occupational therapy to be included on the coming budget. We provide special education services to students across the county, and we support the need for hiring the speech-language pathologist, so thank you so much for giving them that. However, we need and stress that there's a need for occupational therapy practitioners as well. So OTs provide support for special education on the students' IEPs, and as we're stated by law, and we have similar education as speech therapists, but we frequently have higher caseloads for between 85 to 115 students, and we cover more schools between 8 and 11 each. So with travel time, going to IEP meetings, doing daily student notes, making interventions, providing adaptations and environmental adaptations for each classroom for a child, and educating that teacher to provide it every single day, we are so far stretched that we can't keep up with that demand. And because it is an IEP, that's a legal mandated document, so we are asking that we are also be included, because we are currently not, in the MOU addressing the speech therapist recruitment and retainment. There's no additional OT staff, and we're not included in the budget, so we request that the board look to increase the number of OT practitioners to serve the students of Washington County Public School with the best quality. Right now, it's just quantity and getting through, and each child and staff member provides and needs that from us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward? I have no others who have signed up in advance. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before we close the public hearing? No? Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll reconvene our business meeting. We have no old business this evening. Our first item of new business is the consideration of the consent agenda. Mr. Bagel, would you like to come forward? Hello.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. Tonight, I have 8 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for network switches to Skyline Technology at the unit prices listed with an estimated total cost of $706,083. Wide area network services to select WCPS locations to Antietam Broadband at fixed yearly cost of $384,372. Roof replacement Phase 2 at South Hagerstown High School to Patuxent Roofing and Contracting, Inc. at a cost of $2,545,028. Renovations for new programs at Washington County Technical High School to GRC General Contractor, Inc. at a cost of $986,973. Security improvements at Smithsburg Middle School to Lance Construction Company, DBA Building Systems at a cost of $106,400. Technology education supplies, furniture, and equipment to Amtech Company, Inc. at a cost of $122,754. Audiovisual equipment to Nicholas P. Pepino Associate, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $223,200. And unit price contract for tree trimming and removal, renewal to Antietam Tree Service, Carbaugh Tree Service, and Preferred Arbor Care at the unit prices listed.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion, any questions for Mr. Bechtel? No? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting on approval of this evening's consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 7 affirmative votes and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of new business is consideration, the first reading of proposed policy ACA, educational equity.
Good evening. The Maryland State Board of Education and the Maryland Association of Boards of Education have been studying the topic of educational equity. The term educational equity is generally defined as providing access for all students to the opportunities, resources, and educational rigor they need throughout their educational careers to maximize their academic success and their social and emotional well-being. The Maryland Association of Boards of Education formed a work group, and they developed a model policy on educational equity. Our board president was an active member of that work group. As the Maryland Association was doing its work, the Maryland State Department of Education was also working on guidance on this particular subject. In November of 2019, the Maryland State Board of Education issued the State of Maryland's regulations on educational equity. The state's regulations require every local school system in the state to develop an educational equity policy with the goal of providing educational equity for all students. The policy committee, with the assistance of Dr. April Bishop, Deputy Superintendent, Ms. Allison Smith, Supervisor of Equity and Excellence, and Ms. Jamie Brown, Paralegal, have been studying the requirements of this new regulation. The committee is presenting the policy it developed to the Board of Education this evening for its review and comment. This new policy is set forth in 4 separate parts and includes a purpose statement, a background section, several key definitions, and a section that explains how the policy is to be implemented. The policy committee has spent an extensive period of time studying this issue, and each of the policy committee members would like to offer comments with regard to this proposed new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed policy ACA entitled Educational Equity.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. Any discussion? Comment, Mrs. Fisher, as chair?
Well, as Mr. Trotta has said, we have spent a great deal of time on this policy, and thankfully, we've had a number of knowledgeable people that have helped us. We also have had guidance from a number of documents, obviously, from the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, who wrote their own policy. We've looked at copies of several other LEAs and what they have done on their policy. However, their policies were written before the requirement to write them, so theirs aren't as complete as I believe ours is. We have argued, we have fought, we have beat our heads together with, even on grammar and spelling, and.
We have compromised.
Well, we did have to compromise. We still have maybe a tiny bit of work to do. We found a couple things that maybe we want to just tweak a little bit, but it is primarily, I believe, a good, solid document on equity. It is something that we're going to be hearing a lot about in the near future, and I hope this proves to be a good document to guide the school system.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Stauffer, would you like to comment? No?
I will say this. I've said many times in these meetings, a good thing we weren't trying to write the Constitution of the United States, I'll tell you that, because it would have taken years.
They are
Took them a while.
I'll tell you that.
Mr. Stauffer, I'll let you have the last word. Thank you, Mr. Trotta, for
Thank you.
your work and your help. You were a great help to us.
Thank you.
Okay, so the vote is on approval of the first reading of policy ACA entitled Educational Equity. All those in favor? All right, we have 7 affirmative votes, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you.
very much.
Now we're to the superintendent's report.
So a couple of reports this evening. Our first one's going to be our cohort graduation, 5-year graduation rate and dropout rate. Annual report the staff provides the Board of Education. So here's Mr. Jeremy Jacoby and Maureen Margovich. And I don't know who's up first, but I suspect Maureen.
I think I'll kick us off and
Okay.
turn it over to Maureen. So, good evening, President Williams, board members, Dr. Michael, student representative. This evening, Ms. Margovich and I are going to present data that's been released in regards to graduation and dropout rates. She'll begin the presentation, and then I will provide some comments at the end.
The federal definition of the graduation rate is now the adjusted cohort graduation. So this measures, assigns a cohort to students when they first enter 9th grade. As they are transfer in, transfer out, that number can change throughout high school. At the end of 4 years, we calculate the 4-year cohort adjusted graduation rate. This is 10 points in our accountability system. At the end of 5 years, they recalculate with the 5-year adjusted cohort graduation rate, and this is worth 5 points in the accountability system. The dropout rate is calculated at the end of 4 years and is not calculated again. So on the far right, we have the cohort graduation rates. So 2016 represents students who entered in 2015, 2016. So these are students who graduated in the 2018-2019 year after 4 years in high school. So we had 91.4% of our students graduating. That is compared to the Maryland rate of 86.9 and represents 1,536 diplomas. For the 5-year cohort graduation rate, this is students who entered into 9th grade in 2014, 2015. This is an all-time high, 93.7%, above Maryland, 88.9%, and this represents 1,662 diplomas. For the cohort dropout rates, Again, these are students who entered in 2015, 2016, and at the end of the year, we had 6.4% dropout rate compared to 8.4% of Maryland, and this represents 108 students.
I believe our success with having the fourth highest graduation rate over the past 10 years and remaining well above the state average lies with the efforts that are happening each day at the school level. The efforts at the school starts with the counselor creating a 4-year graduation plan for each student. The plan's always based on student interest, so they're looking at both courses and completers that are geared towards the student's interests. And that begins in the spring of the 8th grade year. Once the plan is created by the counselor, both the counselor and school staff, they're charged with the responsibility of monitoring the progress of the students each year over the 4 years. Occasionally, there are adjustments that are required to the academic plan. For example, counselors or teachers may recommend options such as marking period recovery, setting up tutoring either during the day or after the school day, making changes to student schedules, and sometimes students have to pick up additional coursework at evening high school or through summer school. Ms. Margovich in our testing office does an excellent job with providing schools with regular state testing status reports throughout the year. The schools utilize those reports to inform testing and also bridge completion. As these changes occur, certainly the students and the parents are informed and they're involved with any adjustments to the 4-year plan. Communication is critical. We do have an online portal. It's called Student View and Parent View. And students and parents have become very accustomed to using the online tool to check on student grades, check on assignments, both those that have been completed, those that are missing. Parents and students also have access to a very nice graduation status report that's available through the Student View and Parent View. The neat thing about that report, it shows the credits that are both earned, the credits that are in progress, and the credits that remain for the student that needs to complete. It shows the status in regards to all 24 credits that are required for graduation. That report also shows the status of the number of student service learning hours that the student has earned, and it also shows the status of state testing for each student. Our schools offer additional services and interventions throughout the entire 4 years. The goal is to help all students graduate within 4 years. We do recognize that some students do need a 5th year. Some of these supports and interventions may include freshman academies, transition programs, support from student intervention specialists. We sometimes refer to those individuals as graduation coaches. Some of our students require support from student support team, and our counselors and our social workers provide social emotional supports throughout the whole 4 years. So at this time, I think we'll answer any questions that you may have about the graduation rate.
Colleagues, any questions?
There are no questions. I just want to thank, obviously, Maureen for pulling together all of our data. Data continues to come in throughout the year, but Jeremy, our counselors, our social workers, our dropout prevention specialists, our teachers, a wide variety of supports that go into helping these students graduate and the success our students have. So just want to thank all those folks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who likes data more, Maureen or Peggy? Maureen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next report will be our KRA update, our kindergarten readiness assessment. Information was released by the state board, I guess this last week, and staff's pulled together a report to share with the board to share our progress. So, Dr. Pugh.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Michael, and members of the board. We're here today to share with you the kindergarten readiness assessment data. The kindergarten readiness assessment measures 4 domains, and in those domains you'll receive a feedback score in a scale score rather than as a percentage, which we had received in the past. It's also important to note when we're talking about this kindergarten readiness assessment that we assess all students. Not all districts assess all students. Some districts choose a select audience. But under Dr. Michael's leadership and the board's support and consistent support, more students than ever have access to public pre-K. You'll notice in the graph the enrollment for 2018 and 2019 for both kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. What we'll be speaking about today will be this pre-K group, the 863 students who are now entering kindergarten of the 1,600, and that's why Maureen likes numbers better, 1,627. We see a large number of students in pre-K again this year, another increase, steady increase, and we do believe that we will have more students entering kindergarten ready to learn even next year.
So until recently, this data was embargoed, and we wanted to share where we stand in relation to the state. So as you can see, the state of Maryland, 47% of incoming children are demonstrating readiness for kindergarten. That's the same percentage as last year, so the state has remained stagnant. Although slightly below state average, Washington County comes in this year at 44%, so we continue to climb. And again, we attribute that to a lot of the support that you've given to our schools and our families and continued the pre-K expansion efforts. In a different story, we'll look at just those that participated in public pre-K. So across the state, what we did is we pulled the data out for students that just participated in a public pre-K setting. As you can see in the last 2 years, again, the state has remained stagnant at 45%. But more importantly, when you look at just those that participated in our public pre-K settings, last year we had 54% demonstrating readiness and we celebrated it. We continue to celebrate to see that continuing climbing to 56% of students that participated in our public pre-K programs demonstrating readiness for kindergarten. Again, with the continued expansion, we expect and we're very confident that we'll continue to see that percentage climb. When you look at those that participated in prior care placement, for the first time, those that participated in a public pre-K setting outperformed all the other subgroups coming into kindergarten. You can see the percentages labeled below. In comparison to the state of Maryland, we're also the only subgroup that outperformed the state average in each area. So as you can see, those that participated in a non-public nursery setting, 50% in Washington County demonstrated readiness as opposed to 70 statewide. When we look at child care settings, 50% demonstrating readiness in Washington County, although 65 did statewide. When we're looking at family child care, those that participated in that in Washington County were 33% as opposed to 36% as a statewide average. Our Head Start's coming in at 22% children demonstrating readiness as opposed to a statewide measure of 33%. And those that participated in informal care, which means they really had no formalized setting, it was a family or a relative, 12% came to us demonstrating readiness as opposed to 36% at the state. So again, we're celebrating the fact that our public pre-K programs are outperforming the state average. When we look at individual domain scale scores, social foundations, language and literacy, mathematics, physical well-being, and motor development, you'll see that we're slightly below state average overall. But when we add our public pre-K, you'll see that our public pre-K, again, slightly below, but we've outperformed in every domain except for social foundations. And let me explain the social foundations. Even though it's slightly below the state average, 270 is the cut score for demonstrating readiness. So we're still demonstrating readiness in that domain when you just look at our students that participated in a public pre-K setting. Although we're seeing success and celebrating success, we know that we still have a long way to go, and we're very thrilled with you all giving us that opportunity to do that. So we're continuing to focus on the pre-K expansion. We're also continuing to allow for our teachers, both novice and veteran, to participate in professional development. We have some professional learning communities that are actually teacher-led at this point. Even tomorrow night and next week, we're taking a look at the pre-K curriculum. We continue to review it, enhance it, We look at our data closely to see where are areas of strength and weakness and where can we grow. We continue to have a great birth to kindergarten collaboration and work groups so that our children transitioning from birth to 5 into Gen Ed pre-kindergarten have the best experience possible. We're also doing a lot. I'm sure you've seen the Early Make Learning Nights and celebrations through that through the Early Childhood Advisory Council. So we're continuing to partner with as many nonprofits as we can to continue to grow our students. So although there's not a lot of people in the audience at this point, we do have a lot to celebrate, and it deserves a hand clapping for that as well. If you want to speak to the Council of Chief State Schools.
Sure. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, in this very room, we had an opportunity to work with Nell Duke, who is one of the leading experts in early literacy, and she is committed to working with the Chief State Schools opportunity, where we're one of 4 states, and we're the only school in the state who has this opportunity to work with the researchers to figure out how to use implementation science to study the impact of pre-K to K. And MK Dowd was selected to participate in that, and their team was in here working hard yesterday to identify what their measures were going to be, what their hopes were for the students, and we had other administrators observing that process to make sure that we could spread the learning once we had gone through this experience with MK Dowd. So a lot of good opportunities to continue to learn, both for ourselves in curriculum and then for our teachers, many of whom are new to pre-K.
We'd be glad to answer any questions. I do want to make 2 comments. The research study that we're involved in, we're not guinea pigs, we're actually getting expert advice in how we can enhance our pre-K and how we can keep that. Sometimes across the country, there's a slide, and I've seen this in national reports. Students that have pre-K, often those advancements are erased over the first couple early years of their childhood education. So what this study is about is how to prevent that type of slide. So we're very excited to be part of that. Nell Duke had the opportunity to spend about 4 hours of probably the 7.5 hours since she was here yesterday to be part of the workshop. I mean, she would rattle off research, but not just research for the research sake, but then would describe why it was supportive or why it wasn't supportive of various strategies that we might use. And she's working with the Dowd team, and we're going to have her a number of times come here. This is a huge, huge name in the state and the nation. So huge opportunity. Thank our ELA team for being recognized in the state. Laura Hanks and her team and Dr. Pugh and team. The state said, who might we share this with, and who would take this and run with it, and they quickly thought of Washington County because of all the work that team's been doing. Stacey, if you take us back to the slideshow, I want to go back to the prior care slide. A lot of information, hard to understand. This is not in any way a negative on our prior care. Go forward, please. So you can see our pre-K versus state pre-K, but this next slide, this is our nursery schools here in Washington County. 50% of the students that go to various nursery schools, now this is identified by the parents, so they might be calling different things nursery school, but statewide, that average is 70%. I want people to understand the significance of that. Again, this is not a criticism of our nursery schools. It could be a reflection of our community, the challenges our nursery schools have educating our children, I don't know what. But across the state, it's 70% of those students coming out of nursery schools statewide are kindergarten ready. Here in Washington County, it's 50%. In child care, 50% of our folks that are involved in formal child care is 50%, but statewide, it's 65%. So when you think about where we are and the progress we've made, you know, it just points all the more need for our pre-K to continue to expand and be available to all children. And we certainly want it to be a choice. We don't want it to be mandated. I would never want it to be mandated. But it's very important for Washington County, regardless of your income, regardless of your circumstances, that you have those types of opportunities. Family care, we're very similar. Our Head Start program had a record high for them this year, 22%. I think last year they were about 15%. Some years they've been about 10%. But statewide in Head Start, it's 33%. Again, you know, for 100 plus of our children, they're just not being, they're not ready for kindergarten. And then informal care, you know, whoever that might be that's taking care of your children, grandmother, grandfather, neighbor, that type of thing. Again, a huge difference, 3 times the kindergarten readiness across the state than here in Washington County. So I just can't emphasize enough how important our pre-K program is. I don't know what's going to happen in Kerwin. They have all types of rules. It's not going to be available for certain income families unless they pay. I would strongly request the Board of Education and our county commissioners provide pre-K for all students, regardless of circumstances, without requiring people to pay, particularly based on this data. So I'm sure the team would be glad to respond to any questions. I know our hour is moving along here, but
I just have a simple question. What's measured, or what's Social Foundation's domain? What is that?
So Social Foundations measures things like the children's impulses, their ability to express their emotions appropriately, their ability to seek help when needed, and also just remaining time on task if they're able to attend to a task and persist.
How are they tested for that?
Those are observable measures that the teachers use and assess through a rubric that's provided by the state.
teachers are trained in that rubric and how to use that rubric. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a couple other things quickly. Had the opportunity today, it's probably the wrong day to stop by the house project. It was muddy, I'm in a suit and street clothes here. But the house project for Tech High has come along very nicely. I'm hoping we'll get an opportunity, maybe Erin can get out there with her video stick and do a little walk through the house project, and we'll share that with the board here at some point. But I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I mentioned about the importance of Nell Duke. Again, a huge opportunity for us to participate with this national researcher. I did want to assure the public, we are following the COVID-19 virus. I call it virus 19 or 19. Certainly not something to take lightly, but from an educational standpoint, from taking care of our employees standpoint, from a health standpoint, we're involved with the State Department of Education, the State Health Department, our local health department. Our custodial teams are doing extra cleaning as we have the whole way through the virus flu season, really the flu season. So just a lot of extra work gone into ensuring our buildings are clean, our students are safe, and staff are safe. And we'll continue to provide updates to the board and to the community regarding that. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the health department. A whole variety of agencies will be meeting to discuss Washington County's readiness to deal with the virus if indeed we need to. But we're already on top of it, and we'll continue to adapt as necessary. I do want to wish our playoff teams good luck. I know some of them played last night, had the opportunity to run over to Smithburg-Hancock game last night. I think there's 4 teams playing tonight. I know Smithburg, I think, plays tomorrow night, and hopefully there'll be other teams in advance, as well as our wrestling program will be involved. A number of schools, a number of our students are advancing to state finals in that. Also Saturday is our academic competition. I think it'll be held at Williamsport High School, as well as the outdoor school Maple Festival. So a lot of activities and things going on in the county. With that, Madam President, I'm finished with my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Dr. Bishop, personnel action.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Michael, and elected board members. As discussed earlier in closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. So at this time, I'd like to ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, to accept the personnel actions discussed earlier today.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting today's personnel actions as presented earlier? Okay, we have 7 affirmative votes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. We'll move right on to reports to the board. This evening we have a legislative briefing on the 2020 Maryland legislative session with Mrs. Cade, Mr. Trotta.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and every member. It's very nice to see you. I wish I could say that things were clear in Annapolis, but I have to admit that it is far from clear. We've reported before on the Build to Learn Act, and I when I go about trying to talk to the various legislators about amendments and so forth, I always try and do something bold. So I'm just sort of showing you. I try and do something that's, if it's on their desk, it stands out. Sometimes I use a picture, sometimes I use color, I use bold print, so that hopefully among the jillions of papers that hit their desks, they'll kind of see this one. I did have talked today with Senator Edwards' office and with Senator Serafini. Senator Edwards, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. In this bill, the House passed it, and they had passed it, I believe, before I was here last time, and they sent it over to the Senate. The Senate has not really acted on it yet. So whether they increase from 20 to 30,000 the size of school systems that will be allowed to use pre-construction funding from the state has not occurred. We are led to believe that will occur. So we would be included in that. We, again, of course, are saying to them, having heard about equity and the importance of equity, reminding them that giving the large counties $3 of bonding authority for every $1 that they're providing to the small counties is not equitable. There are some of them that understand that. I mean, they all understand that. There's some of them that are sympathetic, but whether they will make any changes in those percentages that are currently in the bill. As I've reminded you, the bill gives almost 90% of the money to 60% of the student population across the state, and only 11.5% to the 17 small counties, which constitute 25% of the student population in the state. And so it is clearly not equitable. So we have talked to, I've met with some of the senators on the Budget and Tax Committee. I've gotten this material to each one of them, and I testified in the hearing, so they know our request. I don't think this one we've been subtle about at all. We'll keep you posted. Then there is our favorite bill, this one. A nice evening of reading, and as Mr. Trotta has told you, they have just, the House committees have just done a reprint of the bill as their leadership amended it. This was one of the more peculiar processes that we'd ever seen, because when the two subcommittees, the Education Subcommittee from both Ways and Means and Appropriations met last Thursday, it was as if there were going to be amendments proposed and acted on. But instead, the leadership of those two committees read to the group, without giving them any pieces of paper that listed anything, the amendments they, as the leadership, had agreed on, and then said, we're going to reprint the bill with all of the amendments that we have decided on in the bill. This was without anybody having voted on these amendments, and that's what they've done. And they did that. It came out Sunday night, and then Monday night, it was only last night, they kind of explained some of those amendments to the subcommittees, and then they are, I believe, voting on it today in committee or subcommittee, and it will probably then go to the full committees and probably even go to the floor. Whether any additional amendments will get put in on the House side is unlikely, I think. I mean, they already have a printed bill to take to the floor with their amendments. So it hasn't been the most transparent process that we've ever seen in Annapolis, and it has been criticized. However, then if they pass it, it will go across to the Senate, and the there is a hint, a very light hint, I would say, but that on the Senate side, some of the things that haven't been looked at by the House will be dealt with, and the pre-K issue is one of them. And so this is the amendment that we are putting forth that would allow our 4-year-olds of any income to receive, the system could receive funding for 4-year-old pre-K for all children, because that's what you're already offering. Whereas in the state plan, only the lower income students will be funded by the state next year and for the first 3 years. So this is asking a lot. If we got this through, it would be pretty miraculous. We've been doing some research. We've got information from Garrett County and Allegheny County and Somerset County, all of whom are pretty much offering pre-K to most any kid who wants to get it. They still are giving priority to lower income kids, but they seem to be trying to cover all children. Just looking at your figures, figuring that it was maybe 500 children who are tier 2 or above, and probably not even that many, at $9,000. I mean, that sounds like a lot of money again, but in the great scheme of things, when you're talking about $2.4 billion, that would not be a big fiscal note for the state to add to cover students that are of all incomes that are already being offered pre-K, systems that are already offering pre-K. So it's a big ask. We're being persistent about it, and if we get it, we'll have a big celebration. My colleague at the Legislative Committee yesterday, Mr. Stauffer, was expressing what I think a lot of us are expressing about this bill and about the complexities in it. Even Mabe asked for, 40, 50 amendments to it. The accountability section is very elaborate and is very demanding and very potentially very intrusive into school systems. And they've already, in this bill, asked for 15 staff people, plus they could do contractual work. So you can see that they're not going to be sitting in some office. They will be out in all the school systems. There have been some good amendments adopted in that the things like your services, your goods and services contracts won't have to be budgeted out to each particular school, but they can be budgeted as a lump sum still. And there's some other amendments in there that Mabe asked for. But on the whole, nobody is being attended to very much. The things that the unions wanted have not been looked at very seriously either. So we'll see what happens when it comes through and goes across to the Senate committees, and we will be, again, working closely with them. We do know that Delegate Grist, acting on behalf of the Republicans, was introducing this amendment on the House side because he is on one of those subcommittees, and he was working with Delegate Quarterman and Delegate McKay on that. So we have been having good cooperation back and forth. And as I started to say before, I spoke today with Senator Edwards is ready to put this in, and he wanted to make sure that Senator Serafini also agreed, and so his staff was reconfirming with him. So when it gets to the Senate, we know that and they're both on the Budget Tax Committee, that they will be introducing this amendment that would help us get pre-K money for Tier 2 kids and Tier 3 kids, while other counties are only getting it for Tier 1. So,
Just interrupt you a second. I think, Mr. Trotter, we probably ought to add to our list of items on that. I think we could add the slide that was up here of other services available or not available here in Washington County. And I think also to that is this research study. I know I'm not quite describing that accurately, but this pre-K to K to develop curriculum and best practices to avoid the slide going from pre-K to K, or to experience ongoing growth for our students who are in pre-K going into K. This is this is going to be spread nationally when we're finished with this. It's going to move from Dow very quickly. We had Ruth Ann Monroe here, Fountaindale Elementary School. We had several other schools here already involved in this. Lincolnshire was here. So we're very quickly going to move this across our county. And this information is going to be shared with our state, and then it's going to be shared as a national best practices. And it's starting right here in Washington County with our pre-K going to K program. I think it'd be an excellent way to capstone our request for funding. I wouldn't want to see that derail a national study and best practices for this effort. So just something else to consider.
We will gather additional information to submit to the delegation as this moves forward. And just to provide some background, the blueprint has 3 different tiers when it comes to pre-K. So Tier 1, the Tier 1 child, that's their terminology, are children that are living in poverty, and there would be no charge for pre-K.
and that's up to 3 times poverty.
And then you have Tier 2, which are children and basically their families that are slightly above free and reduced lunch of the poverty level. They would pay a sliding scale, which is yet to be determined. And then Tier 3 would be the children and parents that would pay 100% of the cost of pre-K. And our proposal is that all children who seek this opportunity in Washington County, there should not be a fee, there should not be a charge. And we're seeking the money from the state to cover the cost of providing this to our community.
Thank you for the clarification. That was very
Mrs.
helpful.
Cade, I remember at the MABE legislative luncheon listening to several speakers, whether they were delegates or senators, who said that they thought there would be very little changed in the language of that bill, and if so, they would be some very minor tweaks. So that document there, those represent the tweaks.
Well,
And
this was the original one. The one with the tweaks
Is yet to
you're
come?
getting tomorrow
Okay.
because
Yes,
it's just been released.
It's approximately 60 amendments. We're over 60 amendments. We were a little surprised based on what we had heard in
So
Annapolis.
these amendments, you said that the leadership had made quite a few of them.
The leadership made all of them.
All of them
Yeah.
so far. So do you think this has been in response to testimony that was offered, or is this something that's coming from school systems and MABE and?
It's coming from everywhere. Some of them are things that they themselves
Have
saw
thought,
the
rethought?
flaw, perhaps. MABE, I mean, all the organizations have been testifying and providing proposed amendments. So the amendments did come from a lot of different people. But of the MABE amendments, less than 8 of them, I think, were
Really?
adopted and
About 8 of them,
incorporated.
about 7 or 8.
Yeah. And so a lot of the things that MABE was asking for have not been included.
But 65 of them, 65 amendments to this bill, if I understood what we talked about yesterday, came from the chairs and the vice chairs of these committees. You know, and some of them, you just shake your head at when you read some of them.
And we can share those with you if you'd like. I could go over all of them. But I don't think you want me to. Okay, so are there other questions about the Kerwin bill? It's really all up in the air still. And then, of course, the funding source that they have proposed, having looked at some much more creative ones, the thing that they have really now suggested is a change in the sales tax. I believe it lowers the regular sales tax, but it puts sales tax on goods and, on services that are not currently taxed. And there was a huge rally against that last night all over Annapolis, people testifying, or protesting that. So how they're going to come up with the funding source, what other funding sources are still being looked at is not really particularly clear. So it's a bumpy road from here. And yet I believe that a Kerwin bill will pass. And it will still be a very big bill. And how it's dealt with in terms of the funding, we'll wait and see. Maybe I'll know a little better soon. I'll go over some other bills quickly. We get all kinds of bills, but now under this bill that's come in, you could enact a local law that has to do with electric retractable room partitions. I mean, did you know you needed a law to tell you who and how and when you can retract those partitions, and whether you can do it, you can't do it if a student is there, and if it has an electric button and so forth. So this is the kind of legislation, and it may pass, it may not, but everybody thinks of everything, and the thousands of bills that go in come from a diverse population who have varying concerns. One of the good ones that's come up that I don't think I talked about last time is one that would allow school systems to use vehicles other than school buses to transport students to and from school, and I guess between buildings, so that you could use taxis, you could use small vans, you could use all kinds of things, so that if you're taking a few kids to a program, specialized program somewhere else, or the kids that you were taking to the community college for courses and that sort of thing, you would not have to use a full-size school bus. And apparently a lot of this is already being done. This has gone in as a local bill from Wicomico County, but they're making it into a statewide bill. And a lot of the counties at the legislative committee really were celebratory about this bill, because they were saying they drive one student in a full-size school bus sometimes, and of course that is not very cost-effective. So that hopefully will go through. We've talked over the years about reportable offenses, and we have not been able to get through the small law that we wanted, which only expanded one little piece of the reportable offenses bill. And this year what's come in is a bill that goes completely in the opposite direction, a bill that really decimates the current reportable offenses bill. It takes away some of the reportable offenses that were in the current bill. And one of those, I think you said, is
Distribution of fentanyl.
yes, and why they would take that out, I don't know. It doesn't, a student, as the law stands now, if there's an arrest, the school is notified by Monday morning or the next day of that arrest, so that the faculty is aware of it. This would wait until they had been actually, they had been established as having an offense, and then the state's attorney could or couldn't notify the school system. And it goes on like that. So basically, it's taking away that whole reportable offense system, which many school systems, and I think you among them, have found to be valuable. It gives you the information of what's going on with your students on and off of your campus. So that's hopefully going to be killed it may go through the House, because the vice chairman of the Judiciary Committee is the lead sponsor. But hopefully on the Senate side, we'll be able to kill it if it does go through the House. But then there's also a bill that would establish a juvenile justice school system, and I mentioned this last time. And this school system would be, instead of the state board running the school for juvenile kids who are in the custody of juvenile justice system, the juvenile services would actually run those schools. And they are, they say what the outsending school has to give them. And we're trying to, if this bill is moving, we're trying to get an amendment in that would say that when they are put into community schools or back to their home school, that those records would go with them. So again, maybe at that point, we would get the reportable offense information that we have asked for. Because it does say, the board and department, after consultation with the county boards, shall develop and implement a procedure for re-enrollment of a school-age juvenile in a public or private school before the juvenile is released from the custody of the Department of Juvenile Services. That's the very group we've been talking about. And it says under this law that they would develop and implement a procedure. So there's some hope in the world relative to that. It may not be strong, but it's there. The bill to deal with the backlog that you've had because of having to do additional research on teachers and staff who are for sexual offenses and so forth has really bogged down school systems because it's been very slow and it's been very involved. And Mr. Trott has been very involved in trying to get that bill amended so that somebody could be hired as an emergent teacher, and for 60 days while that information was being finalized, they could be in a school and in contact with children, although still with some other adult being relatively nearby. The amendments have pretty much been agreed on by MABE with the committee staff and the advocates, but they haven't actually been put on the bill yet. It's still pending as it has been. And I think I can stop because I think you've probably heard enough. Things are not moving too much, partly because everybody's so focused on these other bills, partly because it's just kind of a little too soon, and then there'll be a big rush toward, there've been lots and lots and lots of hearings because there's so many bills in, but there'll be lots of bills voted on in the next 10 days, I would say, and things will start moving or being killed. And hopefully, if you look at the MABE list of bills, we oppose, probably 4/5 of the bills that come in. And that's not because we don't think education's important, but it's because many of those bills ask for something that's already being done, or they go to the extreme of requiring not only that, for instance, that you do visual exams, but that you provide the glasses, and they go on and on like that. One more I'm going to mention is the medical marijuana. They are working out some kind of compromise that won't have the nurses required to do that, but will establish that a designated caregiver can come on campus and provide the medical marijuana to kids who have that prescription for that. So that, again, is a bill that a lot of people are working on. They, again, are requiring more testing of your water system, and that apparently is going to pass. They're going to lower it to 5 parts per million from 20 parts per million, and school drinking fountains and so forth that are between 5 and 20 in your previous tests are going to have to be remediated or turned off. We were told that with filters, the water bottle fountains can be made to be under 5. I think bottled water has to be 5 or under. I think municipal water is generally 15 or under. So your municipal water may be coming in at a quality that you're being told you can't let your children drink. So, but it's going to pass, apparently. So just something more to look at and to pay for and to use up your time. So there's a lot going on.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Cade? No? Thank you so very much.
It's always fun talking to you. I hope I don't carry on too long.
You're good. Thank you.
Drive safely home. Travel safely.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay, next under reports to the board, we'll have board member committee reports. Mr. Ridenour, would you like to begin?
Surely. The HR committee will meet April 28th to discuss our hiring at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Fisher, policy review and development?
Yes, policy committee met February 27th. At the time, the committee completed, or at least we thought would complete, the writing of the equity policy, which was passed on first read earlier this evening. We will be meeting again on March the 10th at 10 a.m. To make a few small tweaks to the equity policy. We've been working on the policy GBA, which is entitled Diversity also, partially in conjunction with the equity. And again, that will be in the room next door. It's an open meeting. If anybody would like to join us, feel free.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Gesford, facilities?
Yes, facilities did meet. I'll report at the next meeting, but our next meeting is March the 24th.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford, finance?
Finance will meet the last Tuesday of the month, March 31st, 8 a.m. Operations room.
Thank you. Mrs. Murray, curriculum and instruction?
Yes, we met last Tuesday and got an update on the kindergarten curriculum from Dr. Laura Hanks and from Marianne Nusier, who's the math content specialist, and also an update on the life skills programs from Nancy Schmidt, who's the coordinator of special programs. And we will be meeting on the last Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. in the board conference room.
Thank you. Mr. Macklin?
Sure. County Student Government will be meeting a week from today, March 10th, right here in this room. We'll be electing the next student member of the Board of Ed. Campaigning will last from 11 to 12:30, and then the candidates will be announced at 1. So I hope all of you guys are able to make it out for that.
This is going to be where?
Right here in this room.
Right here?
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Under miscellaneous business, future agenda items, you should have a list that came in your packet. On April 21st, we have another legislative briefing. On May 5th, we'll have the enrollment forecast for 2020 through 2029. Can't even imagine. And then on May 5th, we'll have our final legislative briefing. And that's all that I have on my list. So if you have anything that you would like to see on a future agenda, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know. Mr. Mackley, would you like to begin down there with board comments? Nothing? Murray?
No, the only thing that I have to say is that I hope the county commissioners get the message and fully fund our budget because it's necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford?
I did want to say that I attended MABE, well, I should say Frederick County Public Schools hosted any MABE member who was interested. They hosted a program at Frederick High School that is trying something different called the Links Program. I attended it last week and found it really fascinating. Basically, they were looking at equity issues and making sure that they were seeing a lot of students leaving Frederick High, going to other schools around the county, and so they wanted to see how they could get students to come back. And really just boiling it down to its basic form, their philosophy is that every high school student should really have, much like special education students have an IEP, every high school student at Frederick has a success plan. They did have to fund 4 special advocate teachers, that's all they do is work with students. They started a flexible high school, which is where they got some exemption from COMAR, which would be challenging for the rest of the state. So it's really kind of an experiment right now, where you can start your day at 7 and there's classes, and some students can stay all the way till 5 and 5:30. It's a flexible day. The surprises that I was interested to learn is actually that they're now starting to see a reverse, where a lot of families who were leaving Frederick to go to places like Urbana High School, which offers IB, attracted a lot of kids leaving the city of Frederick to go to Urbana every day for IB. A lot of those students are starting to request to come back to Frederick, and even students from other high schools are requesting to come to Frederick because of Links. And ironically, they can't, because Links isn't a program that you can transfer into. It is the culture of the high school. So you have to be in that high school district. A couple other interesting successes of the Links program were that they've really had, it depends on partnerships with businesses, and the list of businesses clamoring to be partners with the school. And when you're a partner with a school, you basically agree that much like we do with some of our local companies, where students can do trips there. They particularly do not call them field trips, because each of the visits to these companies have to have some basis in curriculum. But again, it's getting kids either excited about going to college or a trade that they might want to do. Basically, what's their plan for after school? So trying to connect them up with members of the local workforce to at least get them engaged. And it seems to be, again, they've been impressed by how many local businesses have partnered with them. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. But anyway, let me just say, they are hosting one more, and it's on Thursday, March 26th from 9 to 11. I got to meet the National Teacher of the Year, who was really cool. And I also learned that the principal of Frederick High School loves Washington County because his children go to Smithsburg. So, so he did say if we would ever want him to pick his brain or anything, he is a big fan of our county, and he'd be happy to do that if we want to sort of get some ideas.
And they supply transportation too. They had to alter the transportation schedule, right?
That was a big challenge, but they worked through it.
Yeah.
They had to provide transportation.
It takes money.
They also provide breakfast and dinner. And those are different programs that they pay for, or that they get funded. So it was very fascinating. And it's amazing how many kids, they said actually the kids that they had the hardest time getting to go on the field trips are the extremely academic children, because they're worried they're going to miss something in school by going on these experiences. And it's like, no, you can leave school. You'll be okay. So anyway, thank you for indulging
Thank you
me
for
with
sharing,
that.
Mr. Bickford. Mr. Stauf?
Have nothing.
Mr. Gaspard?
Nothing this evening.
Mrs. Fisher? Nothing. Mr. Reiner? And I have nothing. Dr. Michael, do you have anything as a last word?
Thank you.
All right, then we stand adjourned.